and a gracious good afternoon wherever this broadcast finds you. This is Mainstreet, and I am not Gary Allen. I'm Geoffrey Mark, filling in for my buddy Gary, who's still nursing some ouchies. You're going to be so glad that you plan to join us today, because I've got an icon and a beautiful woman to share with you today. They're friends. I love them, and you're going to love them too. The icon is a master of game shows. He is 48 years in show business, the first time I ever sneezed on the air. Let's hear it for Geoffrey Mark, who sneezed. I'll take any credit I can get. He is second to Bill Cullen as hosting the most game shows in history. He's also a magnificent raconteur, tells wonderful stories. He got started doing afternoon youth-oriented programming in his native South, where he hosted a dance party, kind of like Dick Clark's shows were. And he got to know Elvis there, and we'll talk all about that. His beautiful wife, Sandra, or our friends get to call her Sandy. Well, she's got quite a story, because her first love was Elvis. Her last love is Wink. Now you know who we're talking about. We're talking about wonderful Wink Martindale and his beautiful wife, Sandy. So why don't we bring them on and say hello to them today?
That she was going to be the icon and I was going to be the beautiful woman.
I think you're beautiful, Wink, but I'm sorry. I've seen you in shorts. You cannot pass as a woman.
Okay, I got you.
Do you ever get tired, Wink, of talking about game shows? Does the topic of game shows ever begin to bore you?
No, because game shows have been awfully good to me. They've blessed me dearly. And it's because of game shows, 21 of them to be exact, as you mentioned, that I can live in this gorgeous place in this beautiful desert. And so I never get tired of talking about game shows. I'm a game show lover. I'm a game player. And so answer, no, never get tired.
What was the first one for you? What was the first one that hosted by Wink Martindale?
Well, it happened in 1965. It was a local show on KTLA Channel 5. In the beginning, it was a musical show called What's the Name of That Song? It was on several seasons. And then KTLA's deal was, if it did well locally, it would move to NBC. Well, it did well locally, and I was lucky enough to be the host of the show. And it moved to NBC. It only lasted a year, and they had to shorten the title because of TV Guide. From What's the Name of That Song to simply What's This Song? And it was kind of like Name That Tune. It was, contestants and celebrities, teams, identifying a song that the band played. And then the teammate would have to sing the first two lines of the chorus verbatim without missing even an A or a the or a but.
Right.
And like I said, it only lasted a year, but it was a fun show. The very first guests on my very first show, I remember, were a local guy, Jack Jones, who lives here in the desert, and who was the girl? By golly, I thought I knew I remembered.
Was it Beverly?
Beverly Garland.
I knew Bev very, very well.
We can't get a divorce because we finish each other's answers.
Here's a quick Beverly Garland story. When I was 8 years old, so we're going back, 7 or 8 years ago, and my birthday present was I got the run of Universal Studios for a day. I could go anywhere, see anything, eat anywhere, whatever I wanted. And I had lunch with Bob Hastings in the commissary, and they took us to the set of Pistols and Petticoats, which was a ill-fated sitcom on CBS because it starred Ann Sheridan, and the poor darling was already suffering from cancer.
Oh.
And she said, let's do it. Let's just film as many as we can before I go. And Bev was the guest star that week. And they brought me on the set, and I'm this little orange-haired, skinny little kid.
Mm-hmm.
And they joked, hey, run some lines. And when they found that I could, both Bev and Ann had me sit in their laps, and I ran lines with them all afternoon in between takes. And many years later, of course, Bev and I reconnected when I became an adult. And she said, for Christ's sakes, Geoffrey, whatever you do, stop telling that story about sitting on my lap. I don't want people to think.
Oh, funny.
I adored her. I just adored her. And
Another thing you said that was inaccurate was that you're an adult.
well, yes, I pretend. I pretend when I let my hair down. Yeah, I'm still about 8 years old.
Okay.
Your beautiful wife, Sandy. We've talked about, and we're going to be announcing something today, which I think is very important, and that is there's a collaboration between the three of us. Oh, that's funny. There is a place here for me to look at our viewers' comments, and Mick Sharkey is saying, "Trio of sexy bastardos."
Oh, is that us? Oh,
That's us. So funny. So I'll take that. I mean, they're beautiful, but I'll take the sexy. Thank you so much. So the fans are watching already.
oh, yay.
We're going to be collaborating on a book together, the three of us. And one of the titles we have bandied about is a picture of you and Elvis, a picture of you and Wink. First love, last love. I've been a busy girl.
Mm.
I find it refreshing that you're so willing to be so honest and talk about your life with very, very famous people. Was there a point in your life, Sandy, where you were shy about talking about it, or has it always been easy just to reveal yourself?
At the very beginning of Elvis dating me, I found in school that some girlfriends were happy for me and others were so jealous that I thought, oh, maybe I better not talk about this so much because, they're jealous. So I was a little quiet then about it. But I took a lot of girlfriends with me up to meet him and to his house. But it was funny because last night we went to see Priscilla appeared here in the desert at Oscars.
Yes.
And so from the stage, she said, she was talking about before they were married. And she said, and Sandy Martindale had some dates with Elvis too. And then she texted me and said, I hope you don't mind that I mentioned that, that Elvis and you dated. And I thought, no, I'm very proud of that. It's my life. And, your life is your life. And what happens in your life happens. So I just feel blessed that he happened to me.
There have been so many books, so many documentaries, so many films done about, down to what kind of toothbrushes and hairbrushes he used. Is there something you think in your time with him that the average person or even the big fan would be surprised that like, no, this was not in any of the books, something not big, but personal?
I'll take
yeah.
I'll take that. You want to go first?
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, mine will be a short answer, but I've been asked that question a couple of times, and my answer is always the same. And that is that so many people are completely unaware of the millions and millions of dollars, literally, that Elvis Presley gave to various organizations. Yeah, St. Jude especially. He was
Arizona in the Arizona Memorial.
Especially fond of St. Jude Children's Research Hospital in Memphis. He and Danny Thomas were just like this. But millions of dollars, and I've read a lot of Elvis books over the years, and nobody ever makes a big thing out of that. And I think that's very important because here's a guy who started out literally with nothing and pulled himself up from the bootstraps and became, the greatest entertainer in the world. And
as Priscilla said last night, material things meant nothing to him.
That's right.
He'd give you the shirt off of his back. So yeah, there are, and you know what? They'll be in the book.
Yes, they will.
But we talked last night about there was we were talking about the books and how many people who never even met Elvis, how they get off writing books on a man they never even met. Well, I guess, it's to capitalize on it, but it's sad because all their information, of course, can't be too accurate because they never met the man.
Geoffrey, do you know out there, you're in the book business, 200, 300, 400? What would you say?
Books have written about him?
Yeah.
In the last 20 years, probably 25. Altogether, you're pushing 100.
Wow.
but they're very
I may
similar.
have them all right up here on the wall.
Sandy's got them
I have
all.
100 right here.
But you know what? You said a good thing. Well, you always say good things.
Oh, thank you.
They're so similar. It's like it's the same book being rewritten over and over and over again with the same information. And maybe somebody found what color underwear he wore in 1971. And that's the new get for this book.
Mhm.
But there's very little, and I don't think there's anyone left except maybe the two of you who can talk about him, because that was going to dovetail into my next question. People may not realize it, but when you, Wink, had your afternoon show locally in Tennessee, Elvis was a very early guest. You knew him first, and you got to watch both up close and then from afar as a journalist the arc of the raw, young, wet behind the ears Elvis doing his thing to this superstar legend that people never dreamed they could actually know. And you got to be a part of all of that.
I really did. And of course, I was in Memphis during that decade of the 50s. And it was in 54, 55, 56 when everything went crazy and rock and roll really and truly bloomed large as a result of first Elvis and then Blackboard Jungle, Bill Haley and the Comets, Rock Around the Clock. But I was there in the mid-50s when Sam Phillips welcomed through the doors of Sun Records on Union Avenue the likes of Carl Perkins from my hometown, Jackson, Tennessee, Mr. Blue Suede Shoes. Also through those same doors walked Johnny Cash, who used to pick cotton in Arkansas and became very successful. And it all started at Sun Records. And then there was Roy Orbison from Odessa, Texas, who walked through those same doors. So many people started at Sun Records. And I happened to be the only person living of 6 people who were in the control room at WHBQ Radio in Memphis that night in July of 1954, when Sam Phillips walked in with an acetate. He had just cut a new recording by a truck driver for Crown Electric, whose name was Elvis Aaron Presley. Hadn't even pressed it yet. It was still an acetate, a test pressing, as they say. He gave it to Dewey Phillips, the DJ, because he wanted to test it. Dewey had 65% of the audience at night in those days, 1954, because he was playing rhythm and blues or black music for white teenagers. They were getting into that kind of music and getting away from the Eddie Fishers and the Perry Comos and the Joe Staffords of that day. And he put this record on, and the switchboard lit up. It was crazy. Played it 7 times in a row. And I was the one designated to call Gladys and Vernon, his parents, and find out where Elvis was. Because naturally, with all this excitement being generated by this record called That's All Right, Mama, Dewey wanted Elvis to come down to the studio. So Mrs. Presley answered the phone. And she said, well, because he was so nervous about his record being tested that night, he went to see a double feature Western. He's at the Suzores Theater on Decatur Street. So they got in the truck and they went out to the theater, the Suzores Theater, and literally walked up and down the dark aisles. And sure enough, there was Elvis sitting there all by himself watching a Western movie. They whispered to him about the positive results of this test of That's All Right, Mama. Made him very happy. He got very excited. He couldn't get out of that theater and out of that Western quick enough. And they came down to WHBQ Radio. We were on, Dewey used to call it the magazine floor of the Chisco Hotel on South Main Street. It was actually the mezzanine floor.
I know, that's why I'm laughing.
But Dewey was a crazy man. There was only one DJ like him, and there'll never be another one quite like him. But he walked in the studio that night, and I met him, and he became my friend. And we were close friends until the day he passed. And as a result of, as you mentioned earlier, as a result of me meeting him that night, early on, the night Presley Mania was born, if you will, he agreed to come on my show, my teenage dance party on Saturday. I was sort of the Dick Clark of Memphis in those days, doing a Saturday afternoon 90-minute dance party show. And it was the first filmed interview that was ever done with Elvis. It was in the summer of 1956. And fortunately, I still have that interview, and I remember so well, Geoffrey. There were so many questions. You know, he was already huge. He'd just come to Memphis from doing his first movie, Loving You, and he was so big and getting bigger by not the day, by the minute. And it was so much I wanted to ask him. And so what I did was I made cue cards of the questions I wanted to ask him during our interview, because I only had so many minutes with him, busy man. And I had cue cards plastered all over the walls of the television studio. And I remember one time I asked one of the questions I asked him, I said, Elvis, did you ever think that any of this would be happening to you when you were in school at Humes High? And he said, hell, Wink, I didn't expect to get out of Humes High School. And another question I asked him, he said, well, why are you asking me? Why don't you read what you wrote up there? But it was a great day, and it was a day I'll never forget. And it's an interview, of course. I've done a zillion interviews over the years, celebrities and stars during my radio and television days. But that's one of those interviews that is ingrained in my memory for all time.
Sandy, it's interesting to me that you have been involved with and loved so many. It makes you sound like a slut. That's a wrong way to put it. At least 3 uber talented, charming, famous, handsome men, and we're talking, the only 3 I'm referring to at the moment are Elvis and Wayne Newton and your wonderful husband Wink.
Not in that order.
Not in that order?
No, actually, sadly, in that order. You're right.
He saved the best for last, Wink. Come on.
Thank God.
Once you get Wink, you don't blink. There was nobody after you.
Nope.
And hopefully there won't be anybody else.
Nope. Done.
Now, Wayne is a very different personality from Elvis.
Mm-hmm.
His stage presence is different. His lifestyle is different. Before I ask the question, because Gary Allen is watching this and he's just messaging and messaging and messaging and messaging. He wants to get across to you. Thank you for joining us and God bless you. And
I saw that.
Yeah. So, but he's giving me more of them. So I will stop what I'm doing and let Gary's voice be heard. He's thrilled you're on the show. Then let me get back to the question, because the show is not for Gary. The show is for our friends and fans out there. Can you kind of sort of compare and contrast Wayne and Elvis as persons? I mean, we know what their stage personas were. We've watched them for years and years.
Mm-hmm. Well, similarly, the Southern, because he was from Virginia and Elvis was from Tennessee, so they had a Southern thing in common in regards to like Black Eyed Peas for New Year's Eve, to for good luck. In fact, Wayne's mother, when we'd go to Vegas and would be at the hotel, she would bring them over to our hotel and put them in front of our hotel room door at night to make sure that we'd have, because we used to spend a lot of New Year's Eves with him, and make sure we had the Black Eyed Peas. So they did have some things in common. Both super dynamic entertainers, both gave it their total all. I mean, all they had to give, they gave to their audience.
They left it on stage.
Elvis was first, of course. Wayne Newton idolized and looked up to Elvis. When I first met him in Las Vegas, he told me, how much he thought of Elvis, and he knew that Elvis was dating me at the time. And he said to me, Sandy, someday I'm going to be as big as Elvis Presley. I'm going to have a Rolls Royce. He described the mansion he was going to build that he thought would be in Virginia, but because of his asthma, then ended up being in Las Vegas.
Right.
But the way he described it, we were kids. I mean, when he first built the house and Wink and I went there, it's exactly what he had in his mind. So, power of positive thinking. This young man thought positive, and then he went from his little 1960 blue Cadillac to Rolls Royces and all the things he said he was going to achieve, he achieved. But I think it started out with his admiration for Elvis, and he looked up to Elvis. And then years later, of course, they became friends. So, but as far as differences, they both love the women. So
Really?
you know what? Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, at least this woman anyway.
So as far as differences,
Wayne sometimes comes across a little angry.
well, Wayne is more of a businessman for sure. He had the business side in his brain. Elvis was just totally creative, fun, enjoy. He didn't care about the money. He didn't care about anything. He just was so happy to sing and do what he did. Wayne wasn't angry until horrible things happened to him in his life, like when he was going to buy the Aladdin Hotel, and that went south, and he lost a lot of money. And I mean, he went through some things that Elvis didn't have to go through, thank God for Elvis. But Wayne went through a lot, and he was Mr. Las Vegas for many years. So I think he was under maybe more stress than he did maintain his family, his mother. Of course, Elvis maintained all the Memphis Mafia and all of his group, but Wayne also took care of his mother, his brother, his father, his manager. I mean, he felt responsible for all these people. And when he became a solo artist, they were all on the payroll, you know, for him, just as all of Elvis's were on the payroll for him. But Wayne was very generous. I think he gave larger sums of money away than Elvis did, because he didn't. At the beginning, Elvis didn't have that kind of money to give away, and he grew up a poor Tennessee boy, so he had a little different mentality, I guess. But you know, that's a very good question, and I'll have to think more about what I think are more of differences. That's very interesting.
Okay, we'll keep that for the book.
Oh, hey, I'll ruminate on that one.
Shall we meet here again tomorrow, same time, same station? Have her answer that question.
I will change the question.
Okay.
What is it about you, do you think? And Wink can sort of talk about this from his point of view. Obviously, it's not just coincidence or kismet that three of the most charming, handsome, talented men in show business loved you so much. What do you think, Sandy, it is about you that attracted them to you? And then I'd like to hear what Wink says, what attracted him to you.
Well, first of all, God. I think I was born under a lucky star, because I never actually looked to meet anyone, to go anywhere, to do anything. It all came to me, and they all came to me. I never pursued meeting Elvis or Wayne or Wink. I didn't pursue anything. So I have to feel that it's God's plan for my life in some respect, because it's just, okay, this is it. And you accept what happens to you in your life. But I was never the one that actually tried to initiate anything. I was just always on the other end of that. And I was having such a good time and enjoying it. I was quiet. I looked up to the people that I knew, especially Elvis. I wasn't a slut. I wasn't promiscuous. I didn't sleep with it. I wasn't going to sleep with anybody till I got married, because my mother said, you do not sleep with men until you get married. So I did a hell of a lot of necking. That could be one of the reasons why Elvis dated me for so many years. He kept waiting for me to wake up and grow up and want to have sex. And that wasn't going to happen until I got married. So we did an awful lot of necking. I guess I was pretty good at necking, because we all necked for a long time. And so other than that, my dad had nightclubs. So I was in a wonderful growing up musical atmosphere. My dad started the Righteous Brothers, Glenn Campbell. Of course, Elvis came to my dad's club. That's how I met him. So I was always involved in music and entertainment. And I was a dancer. And at that time, I would say I had a very cute little, I had like an 18-inch waist. it's covered over by a few more inches of other stuff now. But I had a
don't you dare. Don't you
in.
dare put yourself down. You are a beautiful lady. You are still a beautiful lady.
Now let me tell you why I was attracted.
Oh, here we go. This is I want to hear this
to her.
Okay, tell me.
As you know, Geoffrey, and as your listeners will find out in a moment, in case they don't know, we met almost by accident one Sunday at the Gene Autry Hotel here in Palm Springs, California. I was there to do a commercial for General Telephone. And tell them why you were there that Sunday.
Well, because my dad had a nightclub on Sunset called the Red Velvet. At that time, the music industry would have a big golf tournament here, and it would be Glenn Campbell,
who was a scratch golfer, by the way.
Yeah, Andy Williams. What's the one that Keely Smith married that was the record producer? Jimmy Bowen. All these people would get together and do this golf tournament for Dinah Shore's, and it was, I think money went to charity, but they had to be equally drunk by the end of the tournament. So they would bet money at each hole, and they would also have to consume a shot of whatever they drank. So I drove the booze cart from hole to hole on the golf course, and they had to sign off that they consumed whatever it was they were drinking, so that they were all equally drunk, so that nobody had an advantage over anybody else in regards to who won this tournament. So I was there for that.
So she was sitting with her girlfriend.
Because I was not going to go by myself with all those intoxicated men. So I thought, well, I'll take my girlfriend and then I'll be safe. So she came with me and we stayed at the Gene Autry Hotel.
And they were sitting in the coffee shop having coffee.
Sombrero.
When my friend and I walked by, walked out to the pool, check out the action, no action, came back by. And Sandy said to Terry Brown, her friend,
no.
Or Terry said, that's Wink Martindale. And she said, no, that's not Wink Martindale. He's an old man with a bunch of kids.
This guy's too young to shoot. That can't be Wink Martindale.
But we went in, said hello. And
no luck at the pool, by the way. So then they came back by the coffee shop.
Well, I saw her and I thought maybe I'll get lucky here.
Yeah, you did not.
But
Terry said hello to you.
Yeah, and I talked to Terry most of the time, and she talked to my friend.
Your next door neighbor. His name was Michael Schmidt, because he had just recently gone through a divorce, so he hadn't gotten like his lines, or he wasn't really ready to start, dating yet. So he was kind of shy. In fact, he didn't flirt with me. He didn't even wink at me. Ho ho.
Well, I'll tell you what. After she met me in the coffee shop that morning, I couldn't get her off my back.
Oh,
she followed me constantly.
Get the shovel.
I couldn't get her off the phone.
Put your boots on. It's getting deep in.
So anyway,
Geoffrey.
the following week, I called Terry Brown and asked for Sandy's number, and we went on our first date at the old Chart House on Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu. That was our first date, and
that's almost 50 years. That's 50 years ago.
Here we are, all these years later.
But he is what I prayed for as a child, Geoffrey. I went to church every Sunday, and I prayed for somebody I could grow old with, and by God, here we are, and we got old together. So,
well, what really attracted me to her is the fact that not only is she a pretty lady, and but she's a good person, and what you see is what you get with Sandy. Outside of a few minor arguments, one reason our marriage has lasted as long as, it's 46 years now. Huh?
Yes, dear.
Yeah, and we've very seldom ever argued. And
no, we have the same taste.
Yeah,
we like to go out and eat. We like the same things. It's easy.
We both love margaritas.
Our viewer, the More 76. What a unique experience! Thanks for the show. And one more thing, there wonderful positivity, so much joy.
There is.
So we're making our fans and our viewers very happy today. I'm happy to hear that.
Oh, good.
You talked about
can't ask for more than
you just mentioned getting old together.
Yes.
I don't view either of you as being old people. There is a youthful exuberance, a twinkle in the eye. If I didn't know how old you were, I'd have no idea how old you are. What is the...
I don't mind telling people, I don't mind saying that December the 4th this year, I will reach my 88th birthday. I'll be 88. and I don't feel 88. I know I don't look 88, and I feel like I might be, I don't know, 55 or 60 years old. And I have the same energy I always
And he
had.
takes care of me. He opens all bottles because I am fragile and delicate and can't even open a Coca-Cola.
What would you do if I wasn't around? Who would open your
I'd be
Coke
in
bottles?
deep doo-doo.
Yes, you would.
Now you just moved to the desert fairly recently. This gorgeous, gorgeous house, which has the most spectacular view I've seen of any place in the
We
desert.
do have a great view, don't we?
Yeah.
You have a gorgeous house and a gorgeous view, and it's half the reason I want to write this book with you, just so I can go there and visit. It's so good. Was it a big, not change of life, but did you have to adjust a whole lot to living out in the desert, or is it just more of the same for you?
Oh, it's totally different. I mean, we had a monster. I had 12 closets, Geoffrey. Now I have one and a storage unit. So that's a big adjustment because I love my clothes.
She has clothes that she wore in high school,
I do.
which she refuses to get rid of.
I do.
That's why she needs 12 to 15 closets.
The other night we went to this Andrew Bocelli concert.
We do argue about the closets.
That was 15 minutes from here, and I wore a St. John gown that when I was going through a box in the garage, I found a picture of it. I bought this St. John gown. I've been wearing it since 1997. It's like my tuxedo. It goes anywhere. It's perfect. It's got a jacket. I love it. And, it just proves years ago, they made clothes, I think, much better than they do today. But things were made so well that if you bought something nice in those days, it lasts. You don't have to keep buying the same stuff over and over again. So, so adjustment clothes-wise. Adjustment, we got rid of all dining rooms. Dining rooms are history because we like to go out and eat. So now we go out to eat a lot.
We made a sitting room out of our dining room.
Yeah, no more dining room. So that's different. It's a lot less room. One of our houses we lived in Malibu for a while, and there was 96 French doors. In fact, we were on Lifestyle of the Rich and Famous and all those ridiculous shows, but it was fun at the time. And we spent a fortune.
She wanted the big house, so I
no. Get the boots out again, the shovel. I wanted to stay where I was.
That was my fault. That was my fault.
He wanted palm trees and Malibu because he dreamed about it when he was in Tennessee. So that's why we did that move. But I could never find him. I needed a bullhorn. It was all on one level, and I'd go. If somebody called, Wink, where's Wink? I'd go out one door, he'd come in another.
The house was so big, you couldn't hear. I couldn't hear her call me from the other side of the house. It was that big.
And now this is perfect. I remember as a child when my family first came out from Pennsylvania, I was 2 years old, and we came out in a trailer. I loved the trailer because it was cozy. Here's my mommy, here's my daddy. I'm secure. Everything's perfect. And as we moved into houses and they got bigger and bigger, I got scared. It was scary. As a young girl, I would go from my bedroom with my pillow to my mom and dad's bedroom and want to sleep with them.
Excuse me, I'm going to take dude out and I'll be back.
Watch they don't see you, Dad, from the bottom down. He's wearing his undies, folks.
And you know what? We'll get more viewers that way.
This is not an X-ray show.
Come on, dude.
Let's tell our friends out there what we're talking about. They have a wonderful Chihuahua. Who is very loving and very active, but when an animal has to do their thing, and so they're making sure that the thing is done outdoors.
He tells us when he has to do his thing. So anyway, so this house, it's I think 3,500, 3,600 square feet. Perfect. I can be upstairs. I can say Wink, and he'll be downstairs in the kitchen. I can hear him. I can smell the coffee. Because he gets up early, he makes the coffee, he gets everything ready for me, he squeezes lemon juice, so we have a little lemon juice in the morning for our health. I mean, it's just, this is, we've died and gone to heaven. There's so much less upkeep. Nobody told us we didn't have to spend all that money and we could still be really happy. So that's the answer to that question.
I asked Wink a question about you. I think I'm going to turn it around and ask you the same question.
Okay.
Well, we've talked about Elvis, we've talked about Wayne, and maybe we can talk in a few minutes about what was it about them as persons that attracted you, but what was it about Wink that brought
Number
that
one,
sparkle to your eye?
when I first, his smile, he's got the $1 million smile. Look
Yes,
at
he
that.
does. Yes,
He
he does.
lights up a room when he smiles. So the first thing I saw was the smile, and nice sense of humor. Like to go out to eat, which I like to go out to eat too. We like the same food, the same restaurant. So I was attracted to that. Of course, he's a very handsome gentleman, and he always has been. So I was attracted to that. I was attracted to the fact that he was a Tennessee boy, because since Elvis was such a good part of my growing up in my life and such a wonderful everything, when he said he was from Tennessee, he scored points immediately, because I knew, I thought, well, he's going to be a wonderful Southern gentleman like
And then I
Elvis.
scored.
And then he scored. Yes. And then when we got married, I could never be with another man. He is the cleanest, neatest human on the planet. He puts everything away. If he gets a scissors out of a drawer, it goes right back in that drawer. I mean, I can bank on it that I can find it where it's supposed to be, because he's got that, whatever that thing in his brain, the little synapses is.
I'm a neat Nick.
For organization, he's got that. He's always on time. I used to always be late. Now I'm more on time because he got me cranked up a little bit.
Another reason we argue every once in a while.
Well, that was years ago, because now I'm always, I try to be on time, because I learned later in life that I used to sometimes make Elvis wait for an hour. When I'm getting ready for a date. Well, of course, I didn't get like a day notice. I mean, I'd get a call like at 5 o'clock saying, okay, Joe Esposito is going to be there to pick you up at 6 o'clock. And no, I might be ready 7:30. I'd have to wash my long dark hair, and I'd have to get all ready. And so, I was never like ready on time. And then I learned, from Wink, of course. And also we had a friend called Peter Burwash, and he said, if you're late, you're being selfish and you're taking somebody else's time. I had never heard that when I was getting ready for those dates. And that hit me so hard that, oh my God, I'm not a selfish, rude person. I can't do that to somebody else. So then I got a lot more respectful of people and their time. So so he's always on time. So he gets me up earlier in the morning, because I used to sleep till noon, and he's up at 4 or 5 in the morning. So he's got me living a better lifestyle that way. And then I'm into the health and nutrition, so I got him better that way.
I'll tell you, so what's most unusual about her that just completely wipes me out when I think about it.
Woo!
She watches her weight like nobody I've ever known. She checks it when
Every
she
morning.
goes to bed. She
No,
checks
not
it
when I
when
go to
she
bed.
gets up.
When I get up.
And if she's 1 pound off from dinner the night before, it bugs her until she gets rid of that pound. And when I first met her, to be honest, she was a little on the heavy side.
I was like 130.
And it didn't bother me then, because I figured it was more to love.
Right.
I went with my mother and sister to Europe, and we went on the 2 ships over to London, and then another ship from Italy back to New York. And I literally, with a spoon, ate my way across the Atlantic and back. I didn't care about men. At that point in my life, it was food.
Well, you had gone through a bad marriage.
A 6-month marriage that I had annulled when I waited till I was 21 to have sex, and then it was not what I thought it was going to be. So then I decided, okay, food's the answer to everything. So I ate my way across the Atlantic and back, and that's when I meet this guy, and he was going to be my affair, and here we are. All these years later, I'm still having this affair.
Let me ask an opinion. And I think both of you, because you know the people involved. Opinion.
Okay.
The two of you have a happy marriage. It's obvious from spending time with you off camera that you're a happy couple, which is yay.
Yay, thank God.
Do you think Elvis was capable of having a happy marriage?
No.
No way.
Okay. Do you think Wayne is capable of having a happy marriage?
A little better, because the marriage he has now, and I think he's like done sowing his wild oats, and he's calmed down considerably. And she's a lovely lady that he's married to now. and she's very dedicated to him. And I think now he does have a successful marriage.
But even last night, Priscilla kind of got in just on the edge of the reason Elvis could never be, the perfect husband, because women were constantly, throwing themselves at him. So what do? You say no to all these women?
And he was human, for gosh sake, and the most beautiful man on the planet. Present company. Anyway, he was the most beautiful man on the planet. So all these women are half nude throwing themselves at him. He was human. I mean, you can only have so much, I guess, willpower when you're Elvis Presley. And so it was difficult on him. But when you think about the fact that he was only on the planet 42 years, all the recordings, that he can have a radio station that plays Elvis 24 hours a day, all the movies that they could run, several days in a row without ever
tremendous body
doing
of
the
work.
same one. I mean, poor thing, he couldn't have had that much sex or that many women because he was always either in a recording studio or on a sound stage. But thank God he did have what he had and who he had and when he had it, because he wasn't here that long. So I don't deprive him of any of that. But I think, I don't know, I wasn't his wife, so I can't say what I would have expected. Although growing up in the nightclub business, my dad cheated on my mom a lot with Mamie Van Doren and all these people, because he wasn't the star. He was a nightclub owner. So women threw themselves at him too. My mom would make his dinner, lay his clothes out for him to go out and not come home till maybe the next day. So I was more, I think, aware and more accepting of promiscuity. Although I don't know if I was his wife, if I could have handled what Priscilla and Linda actually went through being with him 24/7.
Well, Priscilla took it for a while, but like she said last night, it got to the point she couldn't take it anymore. And so as a result of...
not out of not loving him, but she just, it hurt, I guess.
It hurt a lot.
Painful.
Do you think because both Elvis and Wayne, superstar category in their prime, both of them leaned on sexiness and sexuality on stage, does that engender a certain egocentric thought waves that I can have whoever I want because it's coming to me?
True.
Without really thinking that you could be hurting someone including yourself, by doing that.
No, I don't think either one of them ever would stop to have thought about such a thing. No, I don't think they would have thought about that.
I know that Wayne is an educated, intelligent person with whom you can have good conversations on a variety of subjects.
Oh, yeah.
But I've sometimes thought, what would I have spoken to Elvis about other than his music or his spirituality? What was he prepared to discuss? Was there more to him than his career and his love of God? Or was that all of Elvis?
There was a lot of...
That's a good question.
A lot of spirituality to him. And he was hungry to know about all different religions. And there's a whole spiritual side of him. And he did a lot of reading and a lot of studying.
He grew up in the Assembly of God Church in Tupelo, Mississippi, very small church. But, the Assembly of God really and truly believes there is but one God. And I don't think that there's anybody who believes stronger in Jesus Christ than those people. And he was one of those. He was really a spiritual person. And getting back to the question you asked a while ago, that some people might not know about Elvis, that might be a little bit of a subject that fewer people are aware of, the fact that he was so spiritual, because we hear 99% of the time about the sexy Elvis Presley and his sexy songs and and all that sort of thing.
And another thing is,
his parents were very spiritual.
When he was going with me, because I wasn't into sex at that point in my life, he didn't have to perform for me. He didn't have to be Mr. I'm the sexiest man on the planet. We could cuddle and then he could go to sleep, and he didn't have to do that. So I think that was also because they are who they were, there was like a demand for them to perform. So he used to say to me, he felt very relaxed with me, and that he could, just be himself because he didn't have to do that. And he'd still have a good time and he'd still have company. So that area I fulfilled.
Yeah. Wink, question for you, sir. Let's put the shoe on the other foot. Here you are, big television star, extraordinarily handsome and charming, and the smile that lights up the room. And I agree with that. Were women throwing themselves at you?
I wish.
Oh, come now.
I wish.
Oh, come on. Yeah, I'm with you, Geoffrey.
No, but not to the extent.
Not to that extent.
That we're talking about regarding Wayne and Elvis and people of his ilk. But yeah, I must say that, how can I put this?
You can just spit it out, Daddy.
I had them coming on to me for a period of time there that made me feel kind of good. But most of my life, I got married very young. So I was married and had 4 kids almost before I could turn around. So there wasn't, I had to account for all my time. And so there wasn't a heck of a lot of time for me to fool around.
Do you enjoy, Wink, being famous?
I feel very blessed. I always wanted to be, I don't know whether I wanted to be famous or not, but from the time I was old enough to be this high, 8, 9 years old, I knew what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to be, well, we're talking about the 40s now. I wanted to be on the radio. I wanted to be a radio announcer. And I used to pretend that I was on the radio. My dad, can I tell you this story? You have a moment?
Please.
My dad was a lumber inspector. He didn't make a lot of money, but every Christmas he got a $100 bill as a bonus and a year subscription to Life magazine. And so every subscription of Life, as soon as it hit our front porch, I would tear out some of the advertisement pages in Life magazine, this pictorial that I grew up with. And I would take these advertisement pages and I'd go into the little back bedroom of our little 3-bedroom house, close the door, and pretend I was on the radio. I'd pretend I was announcing. And from these sheets, these advertisement pages from Life magazine, I would ad-lib around those as if doing a commercial. So I always took great pride in the fact that I was a good reader and a fair ad-libber. So when it came time for me to audition for my first radio job at the age of 17, when I was a senior in high school, my Sunday school teacher, who happened to be the manager of this little 250 water there in Jackson, Tennessee, invited me to come up finally after I bugged him to death to audition. And he tore off some news copy and gave me a couple of commercials, sat me in front of a microphone, and I went through those Hummers like Grant going through Richmond because I had worked. He didn't know this, but I had been rehearsing for this moment for a lot of times in the back bedroom of my little house, ad-libbing around those advertisement pages. So he said, boy, you come down here tomorrow after school, and if Mayor Smith, who owned the station, likes you as much as I do, you're going to have a job. I couldn't wait for school to be out the next day. Got on my bicycle. I was down there as fast as I could get there. 4th floor, the First National Bank building in Jackson, Tennessee. Radio station WPLI. Sat me down in front of that microphone again, gave me the same copy, the same news wire, and I again went through it like crazy. Mayor Smith said, son, you've got yourself a job. I said, how much do I make? He said, $25 a week, which to me, I'd been carrying a paper route for $12 a week. And so 25, that sounded like a lot of money. And of course, at that time, we're talking about 1950, it still was more than, it was a lot for its time. So anyway, that was my start in radio. And getting back to your original question, I guess it's been fun being known by a lot of people. I remember flying when I was doing tic-tac-toe, and I did that for almost 12 years. And it was at the height of the game show world in its day, that
right.
Wild. And I remember I'd go on an airplane trip to wherever to promote the show. And I'd be 40,000 feet, 35,000 feet up. And I'd be looking, I think of this a lot today when I'm on an airplane. I looked out the window and I looked down there and I thought to myself, and this is a true story, I thought to myself more than once, all those people, all those millions of people down there in those little houses, which were specks from the air, they know who I am. They know Wink Martindale's name. That I got a kick out of. But actually just, being famous, it never really occurred to me.
No, he dumped the trash. He's just a regular dude.
But don't let me forget, I got to dump the trash when we finish it.
See, I love being famous. I'm a Hamasaurus. When I get stopped in restaurants,
I can never tell by the way you dress, Geoffrey.
I know I don't like attention. I know. I dress down so that no one notices where I am. I carry Klieg lights with me to make sure.
Folks, I want you to know, by the way, take it from me. I know for a fact that hat, the cap he's wearing is number 100. He's got 100 of those, and they're all different.
Well, you know what? We've talked before about this on the air, that thanks to Rip Taylor for telling me I had a lot of talent, but I dressed like a fucking accountant, and sent me shopping, and the rest is history.
Strike the word accountant.
we can use words on this show. It's okay.
Yeah, I know.
But I enjoy that the people if I get fan mail or people message me, or when we're doing these kinds of shows, and fans, how much they're enjoying the work. And I counted up once something like, if you count all the books I've written and what they've sold, and the radio and TV I've done, and the Broadway I've done, and the nightclubs I've done, something like 20 million people over the course of 48 years are aware of me on some level. That just blows my mind, that there's 20 million folks out there. Oh yeah, the guy with the spark. Well, you've seen it when we were in a restaurant together, and we were having brunch at a lovely place out here in the desert called 849. And a man comes by and, oh, Wink Martindale, I'm such a big fan of yours. And Wink and I were across the table from one another. And he looks at me and goes, oh, and you're here too. And I said to Wink, that's my celebrity. You're here too. You're Wink Martindale.
I think the best thing about the celebrity thing is, first of all, it helps with, if they know who you are, to get into a restaurant.
Helps you get a good table.
Helps you get a good table. And it's also good with doctors, because like sometimes they'll be doing a test or something, and I want to go in, like since this COVID thing, like if I wanted to go in with him, they'd say, oh no, you can't even come in. But if the doctor's a fan, is, oh, come on in, Mrs. Martindale, you can come in. So I think with doctors and with restaurants, that's where it really pays off, all the years that he worked.
And
I
banks,
love those two things.
And banks also.
Yes.
You don't wait online in banks. I love that.
Yeah, Wink does not he has not the patience to stand in a line. If he has any fault, it's no patience.
Don't do lines well.
No.
Wink, you're still working. You still have your radio show. Let's tell our friends where they can find that show. If they want to hear your show, how do they find it?
Well, it's on every weekend. On about 750 stations here in the U.S., and we're on in Australia and a couple of other countries. It's called The History of Rock and Roll, and we literally tell the history of rock and roll from its beginning, which we count as 1954 through the 1980s. And the artists who sing the songs that made the history out of rock and roll, tell stories behind the songs, how they happened to record it, or what the meaning of the song is. And it's one of the most rewarding, not financially, but it's one of the most rewarding shows on radio that I've ever done. I can't think of anything that I've ever done on radio, aside from my audio biographies that I used to do noon to 3 on Gene Autry's KMPC in Los Angeles in the 1970s. I was there for 12 years. But aside from those audio biographies, the history of rock and roll is really and truly an interesting show. It's compelling, and you hear all the music that you've heard over the years from your youth right up through the mid to 1980s. Just a great, great show.
And soon we may be able to maybe next week we'll know where it's going to be on in the desert.
Yeah, I think it's
That's all I'm saying.
can't tell, but
Right.
looks like it soon will be on, and I'll be able to hear it myself.
Woo-hoo!
But I can't tell you specific
Yay!
stations, but we're in Chicago, we're in New York,
I guess
practically
you have
everywhere.
to. Can you Google it? Maybe you can Google it.
Check
Well,
your newspaper for time and station.
Yes. And while we're giving plugs, let's plug my show. Geoffrey Mark plays Ella. Every week I play Ella's wonderful music on a theme. Ella and Louie, Ella and Duke Ellington, Ella and Nelson Riddle. Christmas. We just recorded a Christmas show that'll be up after Thanksgiving. And that's available on all the major platforms. Just Geoffrey Mark plays Ella. Just look for it and you will find it.
A tisket, a tasket, a green and yellow basket.
Do you think that Ella Fitzgerald was the greatest female singer of all time?
I think she was the greatest jazz singer of all time. And I think she was the greatest recording artist of all time. Did she have the greatest voice? There are lots of women and men out there, you know, Frank Sinatra and Barbra Streisand and Tony Bennett and Elvis, because you can't compare apples and apples. They sang with different styles and different songs and different arrangements.
Yeah.
But as far as a body of work of recordings, I think Ella is tops.
I
What's
do
your
too.
opinion?
When she did all those, she really hit home with me. Not that she hadn't prior to, but when she did all of those various songbooks, the Cole Porter songbook, the Gershwin songbook, you know,
Yes.
I thought, what a work of genius that was. I forget who came up with that idea.
Her manager, Norman Granz, came up
Norman
with the
Grant, correct. That's right. But and those things sold through the roof, I'm sure.
and won her Grammys.
Yeah.
It changed how the public looked at her. She went from being a loved, and you have to use the word because that's how people saw her, black singer, to a beloved singer without the black, where the songbooks were so well done. She sang them so perfectly almost.
Nelson Riddle did most of them, didn't he?
He did the 5 LP set of the Gershwins, which was the biggest collection of music ever put together for a pop singer. 5 long playing records of music. He also did the Johnny Mercer and the Jerome Kern songbooks. And speaking of Johnny Mercer, if you're watching us live, I'll be singing next week at the Catalina Jazz Club in Los Angeles as a guest singer in a salute to Johnny Mercer. And I'll be singing Satin Doll, and I'm driving all the way from the desert into Los Angeles just to sing the one song.
That's a wonderful room. That's a wonderful room.
I'll bet they don't even buy me dinner. I don't care. Johnny Mercer is my favorite lyricist, and I'm thrilled to be a part of this.
Before we get away from Ella, I just want to say that during my 12 years at KMPC, when I was doing audio biographies of these various artists, the one interview that stands out above them all was the one that I did with Ella Fitzgerald. And believe it or not, she actually, with her manager or agent, came into KMPC for the interview. Sometimes, like when I did Sinatra, I had to go to his home. Some people just wouldn't come in. Perry Como came in to the station. But most big stars like Ella just, wouldn't take the time to do it. Once I got to their home and we got all set up, I could take as much time as I wanted. But it was just the fact, getting in the car, going to Hollywood, going to KMPC, didn't like to do that. But Ella Fitzgerald interview, I still have all of my interviews, and occasionally I'll get some out, and that's one that I always enjoy listening to again.
Next time I come over to your house, I want to hear it, because I'll tell you something. Ella really disliked being interviewed. And if she gave you that much time to talk with you, that means she really liked you and trusted you, because her interviews were always cool, terse. She hated talking about her personal life. And
I have all my interviews compacted down without music, sans music, into audio books, and they run anywhere from 30 to 50 minutes. And I have Ella on an audio book. I'll have to send that to you.
Excellent. I cannot believe our hour is up, and I have to close our hour because Immediately we say goodnight and goodbye. I have to go get my booster shot at about a half an hour from now.
Well, that's important. That's important too. That's
It's
important.
impotent. I
Yes.
don't want to. I don't want to be impotent, but I
And
want
the
to be
reason
important.
Sandy's not here is the phone rang, and I don't know who she's talking to, but I'll have to say goodbye for her. And thanks to you, Geoffrey, for having us. And really appreciate it, and the fact that you wanted to talk to us. And I hope that we've made a few comments or said a few things that your listeners, your viewers found interesting.
Well,
I hope we didn't put them to sleep.
no, not at all. Not at all. Sir, you are a charmer of the first degree. This has been a wonderful, charming, fun hour. Thank you. Please give your wife a kiss. I'll be seeing you guys next week in person. And all of you out there, get your booster shots if you haven't gotten them yet. Get vaccinated, please, if you haven't. And I don't get political. That's all I'm going to say, except to say, God bless and have a happy.
Same.